we're working into it. So each class might be a little different until I find my happy place. And hopefully each class will be less for you to do, and it just, right, we can just get you rolling. For those of you, I did find it's a lot easier. You need to be careful, though, that you're in your trinket. But what I will do is I'll go ahead and put out here the link rather than trying to update the code all the time. That's the trinket I'm working out of, which means if you open that in a different window or browser or whatever, every time I save, it'll update the code in that. And so if you need to copy and paste and steal, it's right there. We don't have to play this game of going back and forth. Additionally, you'll see over the weekend, I did add to the starting trinket, and hopefully Tuesday, where we leave off today, is what will open up. Thursday, where we leave off today, is what will hopefully, yeah, Thursday, where we left off today, is what will open in Thursday's class assignment. I don't know why it was so difficult for me to say that, but it was. That way we can just get rolling and moving. With that said, I did add, you'll see, some of you heard this earlier, I did add, so when it automatically opens, you have a style sheet open right out of the gate, you have an app.js file open right out of the gate, and you have a place to take notes if you choose to do so, right? Additionally, what I'll put in these notes, right, the idea is that hopefully you can reference back to the video. You have this trinket where everything from this class is packaged in one place. So any notes that I feel for the class that would be nice in there for you to have, I'll start adding them in there as well. So you'll kind of just open it up and we'll have things that we're talking about in there and stuff like that. That's the goal. How well I do that is a whole nother story. But for now, that is the goal. We'll let give everybody a minute. I don't know if Chris and Savannah got to get on. Anybody see them on the Hangout? Because I put that link out for this. So hopefully they're getting on. Today we're just gonna press on with this. Make sure I have attendance. Just doing attendance real quick. And Jason, I'm not marking you here. All right, groovy. How many of you are going to work out of my trinket? I think that's the best way to go. I'm finding, even with Web-100, like they like it that way. Because when I save it updates, and bam, we're on our way.
I kind of follow along with the and then just like do it on my own. And then once the class is over, just like compare between your trinket.
I don't care if you copy and paste from my trinket. What I do care about is that you're paying attention, right, and trying to move along in class. I'm going to grab, whose code is safe? I'm going to take Don Allen's. Oh, God, help us.
That old Mark can't do a damn thing. Can't even see whether it's right or wrong.
All right, so I opened this up and do all, paste his code in. Oh, God, help us.
I just copied that off you.
I can see you didn't even bother to change my name.
Well, I had to wait.
God, right now is about time where you should just like,
I'm afraid we're replacing all this code because there ain't much of it, you know?
Is this from what we were working on last
What?
year?
Not much code. Right?
okay. Yes, this is where we're picking up from where we were last week.
Did we just copy and paste into everyone?
What?
Did we just copy and paste into everyone?
Yeah. At least change the name. All right.
I just copied the stuff you posted to go with.
All right. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to go ahead and full screen. We'll go ahead and get started. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we need to add some content. And what we're doing up here is ultimately, I've held off on assigning you to do it on your site because I want to make sure that we have an understanding, a little bit of an understanding before I give you the assignment. First of all, when I start, right, I'm going to collapse my media queries. And so right now, when I start, what is being applied? Actually, I'll open them up. What is being applied at the moment when I'm at my desktop view? You could answer it that way.
Technically neither of them, but if you're gonna go with one, it'd be the second one.
Technically what?
Neither of them.
Neither of them is being applied?
Yeah, if you have it at full width, then it's just like the standard, like, but if you wanna look at them, then you has to be.
No. Done?
Everything up top with the addition of video only screening is with 500.
All right. So what you're telling me, right, just bear with me. If I came in here at 300 and I said color red,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
right? So I want us to think about this real tough because we're talking about mobile first development. And the idea of mobile first development, as we're having this conversation, is to put all of our base where?
In the CSS,
Where in the CSS?
like everything that we want as default.
Yep. In a media query or not in a media?
Outside.
Outside. Why outside?
Because you want that as your default. You don't want it to be effective on user queries. And clearly here, like, regardless of how you share your screen, because of both in width, it's going to affect what's inside the user query.
So let's start warming our heads up in that direction, right?
So would this be better where you use max width? Because then that caps it off?
Remember with mobile first, right? All we want to change with the media queries from phone to desktop is what needs to be changed. It's hard to get your head around it. Historically, right, it's always been create the desktop and shrink, which, right, which would be max width when you think about it, right? A maximum width, make these changes. So in other words, a max width of 600, when you hit 599, make these changes. Well, what you're doing is you're adjusting down. What you want to be doing with mobile, right, is working from the phone up, correct? And so therefore, when you need a change, that change should only come when you hit that, not max, but that minimum width. Because what you're hoping for, and if you look, we're off to a good start, if you think about it. Because if you look, we have 1, 2, 3, 3 in one of our media queries, 1, 2 in another one of our media queries, and all the rest of our CSS is holding true. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So let's do one thing here real quick, just as a maintenance, if you don't mind. Link, ref. Let's unclutter. Does everybody agree with me on that? So let's take our styles out of our head. That way we're not competing with a bunch of code, right? Oops, did I get that wrong? I'm having a brain fart. Somebody help me. Link, style sheet. Thank you.
It's just annoying because, like, really the way I can wrap my head around it is if I see them as two completely different sites, but you don't want to see them as two sites. It's so frustrating.
See what is two different sites?
Mobile and desktop versions. You don't want to see them as two sites, but that's the only way I can, like, really wrap my head around what I'm doing.
Do I get this wrong? What am I doing wrong?
Type.
Link, href, style sheet, then real equals style sheet.
Style.css, rel equals. There's dash in there, right? It don't matter. There we go. Thank you.
No, where's your- oh, okay.
Now let's clear out our H1 color 333. Everybody with me on that? So all I did is I wanted to get our styles out of the HTML file. So we're not competing with this. And I'll go save. If you would like, help yourself. I just saved it, so you should actually see the changes reflected, right? Anybody struggling?
I can't get into Slack because Bernard's still in there.
I'm going to wait 30 more seconds and assume we're all with me. Does anybody need help? Everybody with me?
Mine's not linking.
Your style sheet's not linking?
Yeah.
Did you open my example?
Yeah, I can't figure out how to get to it.
Go to the link that I put into Slack.
Okay, now I got the link.
And then you should be able to just copy and paste out of the two files, right?
Yeah.
You spelled your name wrong.
I'm talking about spelling, go yell at you.
Yeah, I am actually kind of sensitive about spelling. So it's not a joke to me. I'm just saying, I am kind of sensitive about spelling. It's something I've struggled with my whole life, and somehow I've managed to work my way all the way up through an executive layer with that problem. So it does. I do, but I'm just saying now you know. There are days where I'm going to be a sensitive little bitch and it's going to rub me the wrong way. And I'm not faulting you, but I'm being honest with you, right? Transparent. I know you mean nothing by it, which is why I let it go then after I'm a sensitive little, but to be honest with you, it's a tough one for me. So that aside, it doesn't matter, but I just thought I'd be truthful about it. Everybody good?
Yep.
Good. All right. So now we're going to start. Why is that coming up? Oh, because we made it red in our example. Sorry about that. Back to our thing. We have all of our CSS, which ironically, if you open up a website that is 5 years old, 3 years old, maybe even still just brand new, because there's a lot of old school people, because mobile first development is not dude, if you just take the bypass, you'll get there a half hour sooner and use a half tank less gas. Yeah, but I like going this way, right? That's kind of where mobile development is right now. People are in their old school kind of thing. And the dev shops that you get into are probably a rock star, a programmer who managed to get themselves into an influential position, and they are 25 or younger, if that makes sense. It's amazing. There are some 20-year-olds out there running teams of 50-year-olds and have the respect of the 50-year-olds, but they took the programming. You know what I mean? Kind of like that 12-year-old you see on YouTube. There's a video out there of a 12-year-old on YouTube who wrote a program that was purchased for, I forget how much money it was. It was ridiculous. Excuse me?
Why are there 12-year-olds smarter than you?
It's not that they're smarter. It's right, priorities, focus. Honestly, at the end of the day, we can't dismiss it because someone's older or smarter. It's because they chose, right? Steven Tyler is Steven Tyler because he chose to be Steven Tyler, you know? It's what it comes down to. And if you live outside of that, I don't know. I'll have that debate. But anyway, what you will walk into as you go out into the industry is this whole idea of this, right? This concept that we'll start here and we'll work our way out to here. By starting here and working our way out to here, we understand that it means less clutter, right? All kinds of more positive impacts been proven time over time. And what we have to remember is that we have these things. Honestly, if you wanted to make your code that it made more sense to you, I think that if you put 500 up here and 300 down here, that could make more sense to you, right? Because you're used to seeing larger to smaller. But don't write your code that way. You're going smaller to larger is what you're doing.
Once you get used to it after a while.
Yes.
I mean, fairly rapidly.
You'll be bothered when it goes the other way, right? Like you'll be like, what in the hell? So with that said, let's go ahead and let's strip out, now that we've had some good conversations.
Brian,
Yep.
if you do it the other way, then you're defeating your purpose because you're writing it, because all of a sudden now your 300 is overwriting your 500 when in fact you wanted your 500 to overwrite your.
Well, I don't know if I can, hang on, Don. You might be right, but I don't believe. So now you're talking lexical and execution context, right? Lexical meaning the way that this is laid out, what you're thinking is that should actually be reversed now. Am I correct?
I'm saying that the last thing that gets read is what gets invoked. And then if you have it in 300 and in 500,
Yeah.
when it hits 500, you want the 500.
I'm going to have to agree with you, but I thought the media queries would play out differently, to be honest with you. Right? Because, but nope, you're absolutely right, Don. Actually, it confuses it quite a bit. What's going on there? Green, red. Hang on, I think I might have erred something. So before we jump to that, yes. Oh, there we go. That. So to your point, Don, if I take 300, it's a little wonky and trinket, doesn't it? And I place it down here. That should go to black. 300 to red.
It's not changing.
So let's leave it at that size, right? I think you might be right. Yep. You're right. Good call. I honestly, for some reason in my head, that wouldn't have been right. Because media queries are media queries, right? And they're basically being called when they're being called. But you're right, because the min to min, yeah.
Because they all.
Yeah. You're right.
Like you pointed out in the beginning of the class, all of them apply.
Right. And so if your min is 300, your min is definitely 500.
Right.
Agreed, sir. So there we go. Good lesson with Don there. And he's absolutely right. Right.
Would it be the same if it was a min and a max?
It depends, right? I don't want to go too far down that, but if it was min max, it would only overwrite it to that point. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then it would go back to whatever media query. So essentially, and it's a good point that Don brought up. It's a good, right? Essentially, what we really need to pay attention to is that whatever these rules are, if they apply, if we have two media queries that apply, have rules that allow it to apply, they're going to apply to both, right? And the last one, red, right, is going to take it, and that's going to be that. That's a good point. Let's go through our media queries real quick. Let's clean up our code a little bit, because now I really want to start getting you doing some of this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm just going to clean up since we moved over, because I'm an anal coder and it's what I do. And I'm going to leave the header and the footer changing colors, and that's it inside the media queries. Everything else, I'm moving out. And the reason we're going to do this is so that we kind of have this clean mobile approach that we're executing together. My media queries are cleaned up. Now what I would do here, right, the way a coder would do this, in my opinion, copy. If it were just a little more code, the way a coder would do this, can anybody tell me how a coder would do this? Clean up their code in here. It's a shame. Trinket is like the only online editor that does not have, tidy or beautify or whatever. But if you were going to say if you were going to say that person is a real coder, what would they probably do at this point? We could say that. Not what I'm looking for. Honestly, I probably, if I weren't almost there, I probably would copy all this, paste it in Notepad++, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Copy it over to something else, that'd be fine.
Yep, exactly. Right? And just let it do it. Just because, pain in the ass.
And it's gonna be more accurate anyway.
Well, this is doing T's, right? In the background, what Trinket is doing, when you do a return, it's doing a \n. When you do a tab, it's doing a \t, meaning the coding, right, is representing a tab space. And that's pretty much a universal tab space. So that gets nice. I just want this back so as we're, the reason I'm taking the time to do it is because it definitely helps with opening and closing our window to have our code over as much as possible. And well, it's just right. It's clean. I'll go out and save that for anybody who wants it. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead. I'm going into my HTML. I'm going into mobile view. And what I'm going to do rather quickly is go over here. I want lorem. I'm just going to grab a generator. I'm not going to waste too much time. Lorem IO. You can play with all the different things that they have in it. There's some cool different things that you can get lorem on and stuff like that. We're not going to go there right now. We're going to use right out of the box lorem. What is lorem? Who can tell me?
Color content, to test like formats, whatnot, until you get actual content.
Right. So what we're doing, right, is we're building a website. We don't want to be worried about what's the last things we want to be worried about while we're building a website? Content. So I come out here, I say generate 3 paragraphs of lorem for me, please. And then I say copy. I come over to my web page. Oops. I'm in here. I'm going to go ahead in my section. I'm going to replace my info div. I can't believe it didn't give me paragraph tags, which really stinks. That's a shitty lorem generator, in my opinion, because normally what they'll do, I'll deal with it, but I'm just saying normally they'll give you paragraph tags and things like that. So what I'll do is this. I'll open my first line with a paragraph tag and close it with a paragraph tag. Actually, I'll just use this up here. I'll paste that lorem I got in there. You can see I'm going to close off each of these lines with paragraph tag. And then I'm going to go make sure all the lines are open as well. with a paragraph tag. I'll save this and share it in a minute, but what I'm trying to do right now is I want to start really working on my website. And in order for me to do that, I really need to be able to get a feel and see, right, what's going on. And therefore, I need some content. So all I did was add 3 lines of content. SEO, right? Went over this earlier, actually, with another class. SEO. With my content, one of the things that I want to do is I want a little bit of a heading because I want my content to mean something, correct? And because of that, I want to go ahead and put, something like section heading. What do I want that in?
H3.
H3. Why H3? Right. H3. The other thing, I'm going to open this up a little bit more now. The other thing, I'll save this, by the way, but don't grab it yet. The other thing I think that I want on my page, IMG, SRC equals. Somebody tell me where I can pull an image out of my ass. Anybody tell me where I can pull an image out of my ass?
Placeholder.
I'm missing.
You need to like
IMG.
placeholder.
Nope. All right. I give up. I thought I could pull it off the top of my head like some witty, smart person, and obviously I just completely blew that up, didn't I? Via. Damn it. It was subdomain. So it's oh. There we go. I know that I want it to be oops, wrong way. I want it to be across, right? So I'm going to go 650 by 400. So if you look at that, 650 by 400, right? Or whatever, yeah. You know what the hell I meant.
I thought maybe you really wanted 400.
No. So at this point, we have content. What we want to do with this image is we want to go ahead and we want to assign a class to it. Anybody know what the main image is called on top of a web page? Usually a big image on top of a web page.
Hero.
Hero, yes. HEROIMG, camel case. And I'll save and you can go grab if you need to. If you had a hard time keeping up with that, just go grab because we just want content so we can be responsive. Anybody need me to wait? Did I hear yeah?
Yeah.
We only made changes to the index since the last save, right?
What's that?
We only made changes to the index from the last save.
I don't know. That could vary, right? That could be different for you than it is for me. But what I know is what I shared out is the changes I made with the content. Or I made that big enough, hopefully, for everyone to see. Because right now, all we're focused on is our smaller, correct? All right. I'm going to start rolling. You can grab what I have out there out of my CSS or my file. I put it out there and I shared it. So at this point, basically, right, this is doing what? Transitioning everything, right? Right? Box sizing is doing what? So basically,
Not allowing the box to change size.
with exception two,
Image length.
The margin.
hang on. So section. Well, there's our info div. Let's just make it real quick. Info div, right? Border red, width 90%. Let's go ahead and let's set that to 200 pixels. Margin auto, so we're just telling it to right to center, so margin's not impacting it too much. Padding is 20%. Let's set that to 0. Let's set a height to 100 pixels. And I think we can unset box. So if we add padding of 90, our box grows. Right? So we know padding is not, right? Box sizing does not give room for padding. It just basically pushes left, right. I mean, left down, correct? We unset that. We say margin. Our box size is left unchanged. So if you remember, right, the margin is going to push it. The margin is going to push it. It's not going to change. So if we go like this, let's take margin off now. I basically changed the size of the box, right? Let's make sure of that. Right? So I believe it's safe to say anything border inside we're still box sizing, correct? That changed the size of the box. Correct? So border 75. We're still there. Okay, good. Trinket was playing. That shouldn't have changed the size of the box. The border, I don't believe, should change the size of the box.
But is the problem when your border is greater than your box size?
That might be done. That's a good question. Let's do it this way. Nope. Right. So the content, because we don't have overflow on, the content will just push outside the box. So our box is staying that width, that height. We add padding. It did push the height, but it did not push the width. If we unset, it takes form of what it needs to take form of. So box sizing, right? As you play with it, the more and more that you play with it, one of the things that I'm fairly certain that we'll always have is width. Height can fluctuate based on what it is that's pushing it, right? But at the end of the day, box sizing essentially gives you that greater control from the border in to maintain that the appearance of the box, the margin will always push the box. Yes.
Can you use box sizing in the place of a wrapper?
Well, that's what it's doing. What box sizing is doing is telling everything, wrapper, container, whatever.
So it's like,
Well, no, you need those. It's just telling you how you,
okay.
yes.
So essentially, if you're using a wrapper, you can use box sizing. Like you can use the wrapper with the box sizing.
Yeah, your wrapper, you might, I don't know, man. Your wrapper, you might not even want a box size because honestly, you're at the end of the day, your wrapper, you want to occupy all the area around, right? You want that as your second point into the DOM, into the document. The reason we normally put a wrapper out there is so that we have essentially a parameter around our activity and what our site is, aside from the body. Because the body, you'll learn as time goes, the body's where you make a lot of compensation and corrections for viewports, for browser types and things like that, because you're encapsulating.
You're saying to use the app wrapper to include both your header, your body, and your footer?
Yeah, when you're building an app, sure. And we can go ahead and put it in here. It's right. It's one of those things where essentially all we're doing, if you think about it, is we're adding a whole new level to our content. And you can go ahead and you can put a wrapper down in here, but sandwich it between. All you're doing is giving yourself another DOM point, right? Like in our 115, where we can inject it into the wrapper, not worry about affecting other things and completely overwrite the HTML. So a wrapper is really just a big fat container where you think you're going to want to make a lot of changes and you're going to want to apply a lot of things, right? It's nice to leave the body clean and open, but it's not a must. You know what I mean? One could argue one way, one could argue another way, so to speak.
Strict safety measure that if something goes wrong, I can look at my wrapper, figure it out.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. All right. So here we are. We're down here. Let's get rid of that div. We kind of know this is what the client wants on the site to begin with. We come out to our styles. What's probably the first thing that we want to address?
In the body.
Just anywhere. Like looking at this, what's probably
That'll limit where the text is going, or the content is going, because it's not wrapping, it's just going off the page, so you're gonna want to overflow.
it's wrapping. Right?
Well, look at your image. Your image isn't wrapping.
Okay, but these, okay. So let's start there.
But is that what you were talking about?
Anywhere. We're getting ready to work on our website. We're looking at it. Where do we, right? Let's look at the obvious. Let's pick the low hanging fruit. So, yeah,
I mean, that jumps right out at you, right?
sure. And I'm fine wherever you want to start. I would start at the image. I would start at the top and work my way down. You know what I mean?
So you'd probably want a different image, correct? A smaller image?
In this case, for right now, no. Yes, you will eventually. Right? But for right now, what the hell? We're just trying to get layout and flow and things like that. On our refactor, we'll come in and we might do things like source group of images kind of thing, right?
You can also change the size of the image in CSS so that whatever image you put in there will open at the same size.
Right, but they talk about,
To his point, though, we don't want, and it's not so much anymore today as much as it was last year and even more so the year before, but still at the end of the day, why would you download a 1200 1200 by whatever to a cell phone? It makes no sense when you could just download honestly a 200, right? And it would be perfect enough. And that's where our sourcing comes in, our image sources and things like that. And we can take care of that, right? We can take care of that. We could even do that through our media queries. But to me, your first loop, those are the things you do in your refactor, right? After you do layout, you come back and you refactor. When you refactor, what you're trying to do with refactoring your code is make things smarter and more efficient and cleaned up. I leave those activities to refactor, right? Like that. I'm going to want a variable images kind of thing. Yes, sir.
with the image, if you have a large, and you do the smaller images, would you leave a large in there if it's on a scenario where you think they're gonna expand it? You know what I'm saying? Like, they're gonna look at it, and they're gonna pull it, and they're gonna wanna look in further, then you want the 1200, but in a normal,
So there's-
looking at it,
So
I'm
there-
not gonna do anything with that image, I'm just.
So there's a couple approaches to that. One of the most popular ones these days, and it started honestly with e-commerce sites. You know, when you would go to products, you scroll, and it got better over the past couple of years, but can you remember that point when it was first new? We all knew it because you would scroll and you'd be like, and a little spinner would come up on the bottom, like, wait a minute, loading more products for you. That's called lazy load, right? Well, what's cool about lazy load is lazy load essentially is this. These coordinates are entering the screen. Therefore, go do this. In that case, load more products. Do an AJAX call and load more products. Well, lazy load has gotten smarter where it's like, oh, we're nearing the viewport. Let's go ahead and load the next 10 products, right? So that you can, the only time now on a good site that you really experience lazy load is when you're going, right? And you finally hit that point where it's like, wait a minute, right? With what you're talking about, Don, so you mean if somebody's on a desktop and they open it up and the window's that big?
Say it's on your phone, but you're gonna want to expand it to look into something.
Oh,
the picture.
To zoom?
Yeah, you're gonna want to zoom in on the picture. So if you know they're gonna want to do that, you leave the higher pixel picture in there so they can zoom. Because if you do a 200 pixel picture and you go to zoom, you're gonna run out of zoom.
Well, first of all, if you're going to do that, right, that's an event in the phone that we can track, right?
Okay, so you're saying.
And so, for instance, where that would be good is if I were going to the Sovereign Center and they were going to put a picture of the arena with the seating chart. And they know, even though they have a thing that says click here to go look at seating chart, they know they get nothing but bitches because every time I zoom on that freaking image, I don't see any blah, 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 it gets all blah, 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 right? That's where, honestly, a good developer would bring up the small image so it showed up. And after the bottom of the viewport was loaded, after the on-window load, go grab the big image and start bringing it in. So it's there. So when they go to pinch and zoom, right, they swap it out with JavaScript. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Right? Because if we just load the big image, even though it probably won't matter today, right? And honestly, in a lot of those cases where that's the scenario, you'd have an SVG. Right, you'd have a vector image, meaning they could zoom it right down to seat 129, row F, section 301, and it's crisp and clean. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, right, there's different ways of doing that. Agreed. So for now, we know we're going to come back and take care of that image later, correct? But for now, the funny thing is because we're mobile, what do we want to do? We're mobile first. We're mobile first.
You want to add a breakpoint now?
No? Remember, I could have misled you here too on certain things.
You wouldn't do that, would you?
Goddamn Skippy, I would.
What was the question?
We're mobile first. We just had a conversation about images and image sizes and things like that.
Is this where we would check from our changes that we did with the first mobile, if it fits the next viewport, or if it changes what we want?
Not yet, because right.
You would put it in the image.
What image? What are you talking about?
So go to the placeholder and put in 200 by 200 or whatever.
Oh, Don, you're so smart. Here's the funny thing. The beautiful thing about mobile first is here we are, right, having a discussion.
So you know that the bin is 300, right?
Yep.
So you could make it 300, right?
Yep. I'm getting a wonky view here, right? Like it bothers me a little. And honestly, I wouldn't make it 300. I would probably make it WEB-240-275.
Yeah.
What's that? We'll go check that in a minute. But doesn't this almost negate our conversation here? About when are we going to go for a larger image?
Because you're still zooming in on the 300, right?
Well, it doesn't matter. The point is we had a conversation about when do we bring in, large, small, and I said refactorings where we'll really address that,
It does
right?
Take care of that.
But what's funny is we're already starting small.
Right.
The default is small. And as a matter of fact, when we come in, we won't do it now. When we come in and refactor, we'll turn this into a div. And we'll place the image in the background, and that image will be called by CSS. And therefore, we'll address that issue flat out. Make sense? And if you wanted to, we honestly, at this point, could, if we chose to, do this. What the hell? Let's do it. X. We're going to call it our hero image. And where would this benefit us, by the way, right? Like, why is it when we see most hero images on a page, why is it that they're usually wrapped in a div like this or some other things? Almost, not being mean, right?
You can do a CSS class changes for just the hero image, and then that's all you're affecting for all of them.
Right, I can go down through. That's part of what I was looking for. There's other things too, right? And so let's do this. No, I have something really specific in mind that I want to share. Background. I believe it should be URL. I believe this should work. Hero image. HEIGHT. 100 pixels. See how I'm bringing my background image in there, right? What's cool about this, at this point, I can come in here and I can say width. And I'm going to say 90%, right? Because I don't want it to push up against, right? I'm going to make sure that it's going to stay centered. Margin, auto, hang on. Margin auto. And then, hang on. Oh, okay. And then background. I wish this had auto prompting. I'm just being honest. Unfortunately, I'm so dependent on auto prompts. Let's do
That's how it is for you, because I'm that way. I'm going, really give me that. That's very good. I have a question now.
stop. It's contained that we want. So shut up. Background size, I believe it's oops. Contain. Nope. Cover. Cover. So what we'll do is we'll keep playing with that then, right? But what we really want is, I think it's contained, no repeats. No shame here on this one. It's really interesting that it's not fitting, because what we should be able to do without all this Tom trickery I'm trying to do, right, is say 275 by 100. This is got to be up to, so there's our 300. All right, so let's go there. We're trying to do it. If you remember, I reduced the sizes because of fitting it in the screen and whatever. And honestly, our starting point would be, what would it be? Anybody? No, our starting break point, our first point of interest would be around what?
420.
Yeah, 400, 420, which means we're already out here. So I got to keep reminding myself, and I keep forgetting, this is our 300 break point. So honestly, what we could do is we could set this one to 4 and that one to 5, just so we're getting that feel. Fair enough. Does that make sense what I just did? Because then if we go to 5, can't even hit 6 when I'm zoomed like that. Okay. So we know that we have the real estate for that fixed height, so to speak. The nice thing is with this, if we tell it to contain and cover, when we come to that next size up, right, we should be able to take this hero image. We should be able to come down here to 400. So let's just say that's the 400 area, right? We should be able to come in here. Notice how I keep saying should. I'm nervous. Should backfiring on me left and right here. I'm going to get rid of the margin because that'll carry down from default, correct? I'm going to get rid of the contain and cover because that's going to come down from default, correct? I want to put this out to maybe, let's just take steps as we go. 150. And I want that width to be, let's say, 375 at this point. And so I could go 150 by 375. And now I'm changing my images as I go through. Does that make sense?
It does, but why would you not control that by percentages rather than pixels?
Well, at the moment, we'll work to percentages. Right now, I'm trying to use this picture just to demonstrate how we can change the images and
So you
get through.
would use-
I absolutely would. I just don't feel like fighting with it.
Okay.
Right? I absolutely would do this. I honestly, my go-to every time is this. Why? Because it's just my preference. And unless they specify to me, do you know what I mean? Unless they tell me to use something different, I'm going to go to 95. And it's actually kind of working out for me now, but I was fighting the damn browser. Remember, I was crunched in here, not thinking that I was at 300, to be honest with you, that I had all this room. Right, but it just makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Why would you not do height as a percentage also? Because you're expanding the image, and by expanding it width-wise, you're distorting.
Well,
by
no.
Controlling the height.
No.
as a percentage also.
No, I don't want to do, I don't want to do height by percentage. I don't.
You don't like to do that?
No, because you end up giving up real estate. Look, the width, we can play with that all day, right? But the height of the image, first of all, you can't do percent unless you use newer WebKit, right, to do it. But more importantly, right, what you would do is, what is it? Yeah, I'll show you. If anybody knows, you're welcome to say. I think it's VH. Can't remember. Oh, it's a VP high, viewport height. The CSS, right? CSS3, where you can say, give me a certain percentage of, right, the viewport height. Up until then, height has been a real bitch to control, to be completely honest with you. And the other part about it is this, Don. I don't want to sacrifice, right? I don't want to sacrifice more real estate up here than I have to. And so therefore, like, we got to take care of that other crap as well, right? But up here, I don't want my picture to predominantly, some sites do. What I want available, especially if this is a homepage, right, is call to actions. This isn't a very good demonstration of a homepage, but what it is what I want is, without my viewer having to scroll or do anything, I want them to be able to start reading. Do you know what I mean?
And if you went from portrait to landscape, all of a sudden, because it went so wide, all of a sudden your hero would take up almost the whole thing because it would be, right?
Yes. Right. And what's nice is if we do percent width, right? If we go with the width and I come out, right, I have some more control over this, meaning I can come in here, I can resize the background if I choose to, right? And we can get in there and do some trickery with that. I definitely can say one of the things I don't want is I don't want that background ever to repeat itself. And so therefore, I believe contain will prevent it. But as you saw, when I shrunk down over here, and you see how it's falling off to the left there, and I came over here, when I didn't have no repeat, do you see what happens? Right? So especially in responsive, no repeat can play a really big role. The other thing is, if you look, we're sliding to the left, right? Well, one of the things you'll do by controlling the height, you have the width. When you say contain and cover, a lot of times what you're doing is really masking, cropping an image. Do you know what I mean? So you have extra real estate, extra image around there kind of thing. Let me find my center. Come on. There we go. Background position. I can control my height, whatever. Now, from right, that shouldn't slide over a whole bunch. It did. So I'd have to work on that, right? But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do, right, is keep that experience inside there. And remember, part of what you have control over too with background size, we have contain alone, right? We can put that on alone, contain, and that's pretty much what's taking care of things right now. We have cover. If you notice, cover is keeping its centered. It's staying centered because I have that centered. And cover's probably kind of what you want, right? But the other thing you can do is 150 px. I got them wrong. Hang on. Yep, I do. 275 by 100. Have it centered. I have it no repeat, right? And so if you have a very specific image that you're using in the background, you can even call it out by size. And then of course, we can go ahead and we can get rid of that. And hence, what you should be starting to feel and see, right, is that, like, we can go ahead. We're not going to switch the color of the header and the footer in real life, right? And now we have a reference point that we can see our breakpoints at. So let's go ahead and take that color out because it's nonsensical. It's just there for us to use to, right, to learn and gauge from. But now we know we have this hero image. And what's cool is now with this hero image, we can come in here and we can say, right, this breakpoint is 500, minimum width of 500. So we could even say, if we wanted to, 500 by 250. Let's set this one to 400 since we're going, right, the min is 400. 400 by 150. We're down here in the black. Well, we're not using colors anymore, right? So we have 275 by 100, 400 by 150, 500 by 250. And what's screwing it up is the background size, right? Oh. That's why. Might have to put them back now, but there. So we want that one. $150 works there, but I changed that to 250. That's the problem. There we go. And that's probably a little too high when you think about it, right? The final point, we're done, I'm sorry. The final point, right, just as you're playing, if you want to play with this at home and whatever, the reason for the div is this. Think about this. I now have a way, right? I now have a way to go ahead and do things like I can say hero image is really the container, correct? And say hero image. Did I name that a class? Yeah. The class hero image, the H1 inside of it, font size, dash size. Now here's where you might play with some percentages, right? Meaning you can go if you got to go. I'm gonna just play for a little bit. You can submit whatever you have. That's good and fine. I don't mean to like hold you up. I just, yep, you should go then. Point being is I can start to actually play with my messages in the middle there. You know what I mean? And I,
Just hit single.
yep, 1 second. Text, dash align, center. And then, all right, I just got to finish this thought real quick. That's what I do. Then I can push that down. Should be saved, yes.
Yep.
Ruby. Tell him, Travis. Savages.